Remnant 1. And tonight I'm going to do a segment entitled in my history of plague series, quarantines. Okay, and we're going to start by saying this in 2 Timothy, first chapter 7 verse. For the Spirit God gives us not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. And point being is this: for you guys that are affected with this virus, and everybody is in some kind of way, and we may know somebody that allegedly has it, and they've been quarantined. Maybe somebody maybe passed away. Okay, I know I've had that in my family, and they labeled for partially corona. One was quarantined. This is for you. All right, is to stay strong, stay disciplined, and things will be fine. And for the loved ones of these quarantine is also love thy neighbor, or show love and respect to the ones that are affected, which resulted in quarantine. So we're going to go on and get on with this series. Start with today's count of corona cases. Okay, if you look at the corona cases as of April 23rd, that's today, we lead the way. It's the U.S., that is, in corona cases. We have about 900,000. By now that should be well over 900,000, and recovered 82,000. Worldwide, it's a little bit over 2.7 million cases, with about 738,000. The various state to state, I know in my state, Nevada, we have about 4,200 cases. So, and this thing is going to continue to go up until it fizzes out, which they think it may be about another month and a half, say 1st of June. And it's suspected to be right back in the fall, because I guess this virus thrives on the cooler or cold weather. So let's see what happens. And with that being said, there's probably going to be more people quarantined as well, or staying home. Alongside of this topic, I also wanted to include with the quarantines, as part of that, is lockdown. So that works simultaneously with that. And as you could see, according to newsguy.com, there's a picture, if you look at upper right hand corner, okay, and it's a split image of a image in New York. Okay, it's pretty much martial law there. All right, where the Staples Center is in Los Angeles, California. As you can see, there's no traffic, and also there's no NBA or NHL going on right now. These areas are pretty much desolate. And with that being said, the martial law, they control the traffic. They allow certain routes. And if your state is under martial law, okay, some of those states, especially if you travel state to state, you have to do declaration of why you're there, what you're doing there. Okay, they want everybody accounted for. So if you don't have an idea by now, this is a quarantine lab or quarantine center. All right, where it's pretty much gated off. Okay, actually, this is the airport, and they've quarantined it to protect probably a lot of your travelers that's going out of the country. Okay, so I would advise you, you travelers, if you have going to travel, you use a mask and so forth. Okay, and again, be careful about flying into these states under martial law or lockdown, because you have a good reason to be there, or you're going to get arrested and quarantined for 180 days. So, for an example, Florida. in reference to the scriptures, I ran into this interesting post from Christian Post's article, and with the in dealing with the scriptures, yes, this pretty much I saw a part of this where we need to show love to the ones that are quarantined, and it is also part of the scriptures. Okay, of is in terms of God showing love, and there are some different books that are recommended, and I thought I'd pull those books up so we could talk about. They talk about the different quarantine laws, and how you people should stay clean, and foods to eat, any type of sicknesses and ailments, that kind of stuff. So we're going to get on to some of these scriptures here. So reading this article, like in this little short passage in Christianity.com, where I looked up in terms of quarantine. Sometimes that when people are quarantined, maybe God sends out the warning, and it could work out for actually the one being quarantined. Okay, now quarantine is not always a bad thing, but pandemics like the coronavirus, and I said before, they've had plenty of plagues and pandemics in the past, including in biblical history. All right. Sometimes being quarantined is his way, that is the Most High, okay, of sending a warning, okay, or curse to the world. But the quarantine, it may be set up to protect actually the ones that are quarantined or lockdown, okay, as he pretty much God as sends his curses out, okay, for the sinners and so forth, okay, part of spiritual cleansing, whatever the case may be. But in the end of the day, the God's in control of all things. Ladies and gentlemen, I think a lot of people, because of this quarantine virus, has got back into the routine of working out and eating correctly and so forth and staying clean. All right, but people or society should have that practice already. Now, I know for me and my family, we already have that practice of staying clean and sanitize and avoiding certain foods. Allegedly, I'm saying is the corona could be spread by certain meats and so forth. Okay, it just depends on what country you're in, whatever customs people, different mores, so to speak. Okay, that we eat different foods. I know in America, many people like chicken, beef, and fish. But if you go to maybe a country like Asia, okay, it's maybe bats, or some people eat dog, okay, cat. I know in some of the Southern American countries they do the same thing. Maybe a special dog, okay, that is pretty much recommended for human consumption. All right. I know that in England, people eat horse. All right, horse meat, lamb. I like lamb myself, and that's a very, very good meat. I like elk and buffalo because I just think the texture is more protein than in beef. Okay, but Leviticus 11, and you can consider reading throughout Leviticus 11. This has a lot of scriptures in it, so I'm not going to read it word for word, but written by Moses, he does recommend strongly the foods that you need to eat and how it's prepared and how you kill and skin your meats and so forth, okay, in a way that is not going to harm the body. And many of these laws are kosher laws. He speaks on certain foods that you can eat and certain ones that you're not, like fish that crawl on their swarm on their belly, like things like swine, Those foods are not meant to eat all the time. Certain insects, okay, and again, the way that they are prepared, okay, depends on who that meat, okay, whatever that meat came in contact with, that may be considered as unclean. So it should be a good idea to take the time to read the dietary laws of Leviticus 11. Now, you have a different dietary law in the New Testament, where a lot of the foods that were not recommended, okay, were allowed. I believe in Acts 9 or 10, okay, where those foods, again, they were suitable to eat. But take the time, ladies and gentlemen, okay, to read it. Leviticus 13, 14, and 15. Now 13 was very important because I spoke on this before, where the priests had to deal with certain sores, and I've spoke on leprosy. I believe that's volume 3, where Miriam tried to go up against the Most High, and she was stricken with leprosy, and she was sent out of the camp for 7 days. And 13, Leviticus speaks on that, where the priests determine, okay, the death of the leprosy, because you have some harmful leprosy, and then you have some that are unharmed. All right, that result in to a change in the skin color, okay, based on maybe DNA or whatever. And if you are, or the preacher determined that sore is unclean, then yes, you would be quarantined. This says this also down in 14. I'm trying to get to it, okay. So this is what they speak on as far as sores, and depending on how you cook meats and so forth, okay. Exposure to animals. Let's just say if your blood and the blood of an animal crosses, okay, for whatever reason, if you have a cut and it causes a chain reaction, and based on the determination, then you will be quarantined. Okay, going down to 15. Oops. All right. This speaks of issues that are running out the skin, and this is probably either blood or pus or plasma, okay, where this chapter speaks on dealing with it, and if it's to a point to where it's going to become contagious, then yes, you will be either quarantined or you will be sent out of the camp. So they took these laws very, very seriously, the Israelites in Leviticus. And a lot of the reasons why, because that's the case, because of what they've experienced, the Egyptians and also the Philistines went through. They had terrible diets, and therefore it causes a lot of disorders and a lot of irritations in their body and skin and so forth. And the Israelites were a set apart people, and that's why that these laws were created. This part, because of time constraints, I'm going to have to do a part 2. So when you're finished with that, go on and click on to part 2 of volume 6. Thank you.